Life takes you up.
Which was about 5 dancing girls, kind of like Annie times 5, which was also a kids' show. And I could do those shows, and actually I enjoyed part of it, but it really, I knew it wasn't what I was best at.
But he couldn't bury his love of the macabre forever. Defying the early 90s trend for reality TV shows like America's Most Wanted and Unsolved Mysteries, Carter was hired by the Fox network to develop ideas and presented them with a script for a detective story with an unearthly twist.
What I pitched was really what the X-Files is, but they'd never seen anything like it, they'd never heard of anything like it. And at the time, reality television programming was very big. And this was the kind of dramatic storytelling that was, I guess for them, a bit of a mystery, what it is I wanted to do. And so they sent me packing and said, no, thank you. But Peter Roth, who was the person I had come in from the Fox studio with, we'd actually walked 1 floor up from the 2nd to the 3rd floor to pitch the idea, was determined, because he believed in the idea, was determined to sell it. So he made another meeting. I brought in some visual aids. I did a more complete pitch, and I brought in something called the Roper Survey that polled Americans and determined that 3% of the American population actually believed they had been abducted by aliens. And so what I wanted to show these people was that, in fact, there is a scientific approach to this stuff. It wasn't all just kooky people pointing to the skies. That I actually had a way to mount these stories, and while they would be mostly about extraterrestrials, it would also be about the paranormal. Once again, because there was nothing else like it on television, they had a hard time wrapping their head around it. But on the second pitch, whether I still think that it was because they just wanted to placate me or get me out of the room, they agreed to buy the pilot idea, which I proceeded to write and filmed about 3 or 4 months later.
Agent Scully, thank you for coming on such short notice. Please.
Silence of the Lambs had just come out, and so I pitched them a kind of Jodie Foster-like character, a woman who came to the FBI, who met up with a man who had been kind of banished to the basement, and he had uncovered a series of files called the X-Files, which had been put away on a shelf and left to gather dust.
Sorry, nobody down here but the FBI's most unwanted.
He had, in the finding of these files and ultimately the investigation of them, come to believe that his sister had been abducted by aliens because his sister had disappeared when he was 12 and she was 8.
Agent Mulder, I'm Dana Scully. I've been assigned to work with you.
Oh, isn't it nice to be suddenly so highly regarded?
She would be the person who would be sent to debunk his work. Little did she know that she would be a member of by doing that, a member of a conspiracy to shut down Mulder's investigations, because, in fact, the truth is that there are extraterrestrials in the world, and the FBI and the government know good and well there are.
So who did you take off to get stuck with this detail, Scully?
Actually, I'm looking forward to working with you. I've heard a lot about you.
Oh, really? I was under the impression that you were sent to spy on me.
David Duchovny came in to read for the part of Fox Mulder along with a lot of other people, and I used to think I was a pretty good judge of character. He came in and he read for the part, and he was terrific. But he had a kind of slow delivery, and I thought, this person seems good. He seems like a good actor, and I'd seen his reel, and the casting director was very high on him. But I thought because he spoke slowly that I thought that this is a person who may not be too bright. And I remember saying something to him like, okay, we'd like to bring you in to read, but can you please sort of imagine yourself as an FBI agent for about the next week before you read? And it was it was talking down to this person who ultimately I'd find out would be whip smart and one of the most well-read people I know.
Einstein's twin paradox, a new interpretation. Dana Scully's senior thesis. Now that's a credential, rewriting Einstein.
Did you bother to read it?
I did. I liked it. It's just that amongst my work, the laws of physics rarely seem to apply.
There were very few people who saw Gillian Anderson as Dana Scully, or at least the character they were reading on the page. I don't know quite what they were imagining, but I think a lot of people always fall back on the tried and true and successful in television, and they want to cast the bombshell. They want to cast the girl that everyone wants to sleep with. Is really how it works in Hollywood, and so they're looking for a sex kitten, or they're looking for someone, who would be you might find on Charlie's Angels. So here I bring in this terrifically serious, good actress, Gillian Anderson, who's very young, and she reads for the part, and she read with David, and she was very good, but no one saw it because no one knew who Gillian Anderson was, and she came in a little disheveled, and she didn't look anything like the woman you now see on screen. But I really had to sort of put my foot down and say, this is the person I want to do this show with. I don't want to do it with anyone else. And it was a very lonely vote. But I remember walking out of the office the day that she got the part, because I demanded that she get the part, feeling very much like my career was on the line.
You okay?
Yes.
You're shaking.
The approach to Mulder and Scully has always been, for me, the platonic relationship, that they shared something, which was a mutual respect. That the sexual tension there was brought to us by the audience, not by the characters. This is something that I had a hard time explaining to the people at Fox when I was developing this series, because they wanted the sort of typical and usual and cheap and easy sexual tension with the characters. And every day I was on the phone with the people at Fox. They were wondering what we were doing. They wanted sexual tension. There were notes and notes and notes, and it was a very, very tedious and intense and somewhat nerve-wracking pilot shoot.
You're part of that agenda. You know that.
I'm not a part of any agenda. You've got to trust me. I'm here just like you to solve this.
The ending of the pilot, which is actually was shot differently than it appears, but you would never know it. In the pilot episode of The X-Files, they being the studio and the network, were determined for Scully to have a boyfriend, for someone to create a romantic tension between Scully, to have to choose between two men. And so she had a boyfriend who she sees before she goes off on her caper with Mulder.
What are you doing here?
I knew you wouldn't be home till late, and I wanted to see you. I got an assignment, Ethan.
Oh, no.
And who she ultimately comes home to. And that end scene with Scully where she is in bed and she gets a phone call from Mulder, you don't know it, but next to her is her boyfriend, Ethan. And you just can't see him because the room is dark and he is framed out of the shot.
I talked to the DA's office in Raymond County, Oregon. There's no case file on Billy Miles. The paperwork we filed is gone. We need to talk, Scully.
Yes. Tomorrow.
Carter's instinct that this unconsummated relationship between Mulder and Scully would in the long run be more powerful proved to be correct. Here is the shot that therefore never made the final version.
Anybody important?
Just work.
We cut the film, and 2 hours before they actually watched the pilot, we turned in the project. I was told, subsequent to that screening, that there was spontaneous applause after the piece, and that Rupert Murdoch turned around and told everyone that he loved it. So there was I think a reaction, a wonderful and spontaneous reaction to the pilot. But like a lot of TV shows with good pilots, they turn into bad series. No one knew where the series would go, and no one really, I think, knew what kind of hit we had on our hands.
Slowly but surely, audiences started to build, drawn to this potent mix of weird science and paranoia, as well as to movie-style production values and one of the most haunting theme tunes ever heard on television.